What's up, you guys? Friendly Neighborhood Geek here doing another um, Superman bonus Superman video review, this time on Max Fleischer's Superman from 1941 to 1942. Yes, the 1940s Superman cartoon. Um, if you're interested in checking this out, I believe all 17, I believe it was 17, all 17 episodes are on YouTube in a playlist. So again, that's how I watched it. I recommend it. Um, but yeah, this was solid. This was solid. For me personally, I grew up with older cartoons, Popeye, Tom and Jerry, Scooby Doo, if you want to count that, Looney Tunes. But I also, of course, grew up with what was modern at the time, modern cartoon, modern shows. So I have a soft spot for this show, or this version of Superman. Um, like I said, I believe each episode is like 8 or 10 minutes. Um, but it's solid. It's solid. But yeah, I think I'm trying to remember. Superman was created by Joe Shuster and Jerry Siegel. I think that's how you say their names. They were both Jewish immigrants, which is really interesting. Again, if you're more interested about the origin of the creation of Superman, I recommend you look into that information yourself. But like I said, this was solid. I really enjoyed this. This was my first time seeing it, so I got to experience it as an adult. But I do think I would have liked it as a child. Also, like I said, it's probably the last Superman video for a while. I There is one. So there are two Superman video games I'd like to talk about. One for the PlayStation 2 and another one, I'm not sure what console was on, but it was more of a beat 'em up. I would like to talk about those, definitely, because I played those before and I like what I played. I just never ended up finishing them. So I don't know when that'll be. That'll be somewhere down the line. Eventually I'll get around to doing those. But this will probably be the last one for a while so I can move on to other projects, and there may be one more Fantastic Four video I'd like to put out before the Fantastic Four drops, new Fantastic Four movie drops. Um, but so stay tuned for all of that. But my opinion on the new Superman movie, I really enjoyed it. I look forward to it to come on streaming so I can watch it again. Uh, did it live up to the hype? Maybe not, but I still enjoyed it for what it was, and I look forward to what they decide to do next with this version, or David Cornsweet's version of Superman, and all that good stuff. Um, but yeah, Max Fleischer Superman. Max Fleischer, I believe, was a very well-known, famous animator, and this Max Fleischer was, I'm not sure it was the name of his studio. I'm not entirely sure about that. Uh, but yeah, this version of Superman, again, another cool thing. This version of him got an action figure. I want that figure so bad. I love this is probably one of my favorite designs for Superman. But whenever I get around to getting that figure for my collection, I'll probably show him in a video or something. Um, but yeah, what's cool about this version? This predates everything you know about Superman. Outside of his origin, outside of him being from Krypton and coming to Earth, that's all we get. You don't, like I said, we don't even get, I don't even think we get kryptonite. I'm not even sure kryptonite was invented by this time. No kryptonite. We don't see his biological parents or his adopted parents. We don't, we don't see the Kents. Like I said, there's no Lex Luthor, there's no Crypto, no Supergirl, none of his rogues gallery, his villains, none of his villains that we know of are in these shorts, which isn't a bad thing. I actually really, really like that. It's just cool to see this early version of Superman before what we know of him to be today, which I think is really cool. Um, but yeah, so if you're asking, none of his villains, including Lex Luthor, are not in these animated shorts, then who does he fight? Well, some episodes are we see him deal with natural disasters a few times, which is really cool. May sound a little dull, but hey, that's not saying my man Superman's dull. But that's something we would see his character do: save people from a flood or earthquake, or stop a volcano from erupting and harming a village or city of people. Like, that's cool. Like, that's stuff that we would see him do. So that's and it's animated very very nicely. Like I said, the animation for these still hold up really well. Really, still really entertaining. Um, we would see him fight bad guys. Like there's one where he fights a scientist who creates an army of robots. He uses the robots to steal jewelry and other rare items, and we see Superman fight the army of robots. There's one where him and Lois are at a circus, and a mischievous monkey accidentally um, unleashes this big gorilla, which is probably a reference to King Kong, since King Kong came out in 1933. So we have to see Superman fight the gorilla and save Lois, and all the animals are running around. You have to put the animals back in their cages and stuff like that. That was really fun. Like I said, a lot of very colorful, a lot of stuff going on, animated. There's one where he fights a dinosaur, like a big, giant Godzilla-looking dinosaur. Mind you, this predates Godzilla. Godzilla came out in 1954. So that was really, really cool. That's a fun one. That's probably one of my favorites. Um, there's one where he fights an army of mummies, evil mummies that were accidentally resurrected. That was cool. I think there's one where he fights Nazis, which maybe hasn't aged the best. That one probably hasn't aged, but it's still a good episode, still entertaining. Um, but then, and like I said, we get like a mixture of what I've shared already. We get a mixture of those type of stories, but they're all really good. Like I said, only characters we really see: Jimmy a few times, Jimmy Olsen, Lois, and their boss Perry White. So outside of those three characters and Clark slash Superman, those are the only characters we see that at least from the mythos, and everybody else are just generic type of characters, which isn't a bad thing. Like I said, I like seeing this early version of the character before, like I said, what we know of him to be today. I just think that's really, really cool. But like I said, that's probably it. I recommend it. It's entertaining. I still think the animation holds up. The voice cast is fine for what it is. Stories are solid, all that good stuff. So if you're interested, check it out. It's on YouTube. As always, like, comment, share, and stay tuned for more. Peace, you guys. What's up, you guys? Friendly Neighborhood Geek here, doing another, excuse me, Superman review, Superman animated review. Let me adjust my camera. There we go. That's a little bit better. I look bigger now, pun not intended. Yes, we are looking at, excuse me, the death of Superman and reign of the Superman. You're probably thinking, wait, didn't you already do a Death of Superman film review already? Yes, Superman Doomsday, which came out in 2000, like 2006, 7. And that was more so of an adaptation of the original Death of Superman comic, but they kind of did their own thing. This version, which came out, both of these came out around like 2018, 2020, around those periods. Both of these versions are a little bit closer to the book than what Superman Doomsday did. Again, Sam Lau and a couple other directors worked on these films. Yeah, and the voice cast again did fine. Everybody involved did a good job. I'll say right after that, these were two really solid duologies. Because I'm a fan of the Death of Superman storyline, so I thought it was really good. I just wasn't the biggest fan of the art style, but I could look over it. I could move past it. So what happens, starting with Death of Superman? Well, we see Superman and Justice League doing their thing, being a team of heroes. Superman slash Clark Kent is afraid him and Lois have been having their relationship for however long, and he's afraid to kind of let her know that he's Superman. So of course, around the time that he decides to let her know, or let her be a part of that side of him, so to speak, Doomsday shows up. And he, of course, goes on a rampage, all that stuff. Justice League, this time the Justice League gets involved, of course. They fight him before Superman shows up. Justice League gets their butts kicked. But we do get, especially Flash. Flash was able to hold his own briefly, which was cool to watch. They get their butts kicked. Even Wonder Woman, struggles to actually do some damage to Doomsday. And of course, Superman. Of course, all this is taking place when Superman and Lois. He's about to tell her, who he really is, and he does. He does, and she's like, at first she's like, "No way, no freaking way, you're Superman." And then she eventually like, "Oh shit, you really are Superman!" Like, holy crap. Um, so of course he goes off to fight Doomsday, and we get this epic brawl and battle, and Lois and Jimmy Olsen, who was the photographer for the Daily Planet and also a friend of Lois and Superman, he's present as well, and uh, like they're trying to catch it on video, like the fight. And, Superman's like, no, like like get out of here or whatever. um, so yeah, so the way Doomsday is defeated in this film, it was really cool and creative. Um, so like I said, kind of glossing over it a little bit, but Death of Superman was good. Had a lot of strong character moments. Again, the animation was okay, and they used the same art style for the sequel, Reign of Superman. Um, it just had a good story, good voice acting, good action scenes. Yeah, it was solid. Both of these are on Max, by the way. Um, so now we have Reign of Superman. So of course, we have the ceremony for Superman's funeral, all that stuff. Everybody's sad. All that stuff is like, well, now who's going to protect us? you know, um, the Justice League disappear, and they eventually show back up towards the end of the film. I won't spoil what happens to them or where they go. Um, Now they're missing. Justice League is missing, and Superman is deceased. So now what do we do? Well, a Superboy shows up, and unless you know Superboy's origin, I won't spoil where he came from. Um, Cyborg Superman, who is supposedly Superman brought back. Yeah, don't know about that. Um, and and who else? Steel, who is kind of like Iron Man in a way. But he was a close friend of Superman, John Henry Irons. Um, he has a metal suit. He has the red cape and metal suit, and has the Superman insignia on his chest, and he carries a big hammer, and he can fly. He has like these rocket boosters in his feet. He's a really cool character. Um, and then we have a character called the Eradicator, who has a pretty cool backstory. So all four of these Supermen are kind of like taking the mantle of Superman, so to speak. And they all have different origins and backgrounds. So at first, they all kind of fight each other, don't get along. Then we find out who the true antagonist is. Then we find out, kind of a spoiler, Superman isn't really dead. He's just been kind of like in a comatose state. He's been recovering, basically. Um, we get a crazy plot. Again, kind of spoilery, but when we find out who the real culprit is of the story of the movie, who the real villain is, it's really good. It's really good. It keeps you on your toes, keeps you engaged. Um, but again, Rain is solid. It just feels like a comic book movie, and that's what they're adapting. They're adapting a comic. But like I said, they're both good, both charming. Both you can watch these both back to back. I mean, they're like I said, Reign of Superman is part 2 of Death of Superman. And like I said, they're both on Max. And Max has a whole bunch of other animated uh, DC movies and Superman films. So if you want more Superman content, check out Max or HBO Max. Um, but yeah, that's kind of it, really. Like I said, they're both solid, charming. Like I said, animation not really my go-to animation style, but it's good to look at. Like it's entertaining. It's you know the animation isn't god awful, but it's like I want to want something a little bit different. Um, Unless the voice acting's good, all that good stuff. So again, if you're interested, check it out. I recommend it. Like, comment, share, and stay tuned for more. Peace, you guys. What's up, you guys? Friendly Neighborhood Geek here, doing another um, movie review. sci-fi 90s, yes, 90s sci-fi movie review. This time on a movie I don't know if I may have, I don't know if I ever heard of this movie, called Dark City. You see the title behind me. Let's see, what does it say? They built the city to see what makes us tick. Last night, I can't, I can't see the last part, but okay, cool. Yes, this stars Rufus Selwell, uh, Kiefer Sutherland, who is the son of Donald. I think it was Donald Sutherland who passed away last year. Keith has been in a lot of stuff. He was in The Lost Boys, which might be one of his most well-known roles. Um, Jennifer Connelly, who's been in everything. Jennifer's been in so many things. Uh, I think she's married to the actor who plays Vision in the Marvel movies, so that's pretty cool. And William Hurt, who sadly passed away of cancer, I think like a couple years ago or something. He was the general in the 2008 Incredible Hulk movie, which I need to talk about the 2003 Hulk film. I really need to. Yeah, I need to talk about that. Stay tuned for that. um, but he was the general in that movie, and he reprised his role for Captain America: Civil War, and sadly he passed away. So the last Captain America movie where the character was a main character, he was replaced with uh, Harrison Ford. So yeah, it's kind of a spoiler. He DIEs in this movie too, so it makes it kind of even more tragic. Like your character died, and then fast forward, he's no longer here, so that's kind of eerie. Um, Anyway, moving on. Yes, this was directed by Alex Perez. Perez, I'm not sure how to say their last name. And I think they did a good job. I don't think this movie did all that great when it came out. I do kind of see this as like an underrated gem. And, like with a lot of movies, it may not have done well when it came out, but fast forward, and it has a huge cult following, and a lot of people can appreciate, excuse me, appreciate and enjoy it for what it is. But like I said, our rest of our cast did great. Our main cast did great. Rufus Selwell plays Jack Murdoch, I think. Basically, we have a race of aliens, a race of beings. They're dying or something, and they happen to stumble upon, I guess, Earth. They stumbled upon humanity, human civilization, and they're trying to find what makes humans human, basically. So what they do is this alien race called the Strangers. They create they have these machines, and they have these like special abilities, and they use their abilities and these machines to basically create like their own world, which is the Dark City, which looks like I said, a neo, like if you've ever seen the first Blade Runner, kind of how the world of Blade Runner was kind of set up visually. That's kind of how it is with Dark City. Imagine just being like if New York, like you're in New York, but you can't leave New York. Like there's nothing else beyond New York City. That's kind of what Dark City is, if that makes sense. Which is a kind of a scary concept, but so they kind of use the people who inhabited the city, kind of use them as kind of like guinea pigs, so to speak. They'll do this thing at every 12 o'clock hour. They make everyone fall asleep, and they change people's memories and switch things around. So say one day you were a police officer, the next day you could be um, a chef or something, or it could be something worse. In Jack's case, he was a regular person. He was married, and he when he woke up, he was not convicted, but he was uh, I can't remember the word, but the police thought that he potentially was a serial killer, which of course wasn't true. He didn't kill anybody. Um, so of course he lost his memory. He's trying to regain his memory. There's a scientist who is played by crap, what's his name? Keith Sutherland, and the scientist is trying to help him, tell him like what's really going on and all that stuff. And the scientist has kind of been forced to help the strangers. The strangers have a pretty cool design. They are all dressed in black, which is always cool. They're all dressed in black. They kind of have these top hats, sort of, and trench coats, and they kind of have, just a weird, kind of surreal looking look to them. Kind of remind me of the agents from the Matrix. And this, you might get some Matrix vibes a little bit with this film. Um, but like I said, it's kind of a murder. Well, I can't really say murder mystery. It's like mystery, drama, sci-fi, has a film noir vibe to it as well. Um, a lot of stuff happens. So William Hurt's character, who plays a police detective, doesn't really. He feels like John isn't the murderer who's been k-wording innocent women. So of course he eventually when he brings John in for questioning, he kind of feels like, okay, maybe John's onto something. So he works along with him. They eventually uh, get with the scientist, um, and John is looking for his childhood home, which is called Shell City. Huh, that's SpongeBob reference. um, and Shell City is basically like Florida or something. It's like if you went to Florida, somewhere that is very popular for its beaches. Um, but yeah, but it's like there's nothing beyond Dark City. But like I said, what makes John special is that he has the same ability as the strangers. Like he can create stuff from thin air or whatever using his mind, which is really cool. The effects in this movie, they're okay. The visual and practical effects look really, really nice. The set pieces and stuff, the cinematography, all that looks really cool. Um, but some of the like CGI, even for '98 standards, yeah, it was a little funky. But you look past it. Um, but yeah, it was good, and of course we do get a solid finale. I don't want to spoil how John and company save the day, or how everything comes full circle. Um, I forgot Jennifer Connelly plays his love interest, and she does a good job. She's always a treat. It's always a treat to see her in a movie. But yeah, it's good. It's currently on Tubi. If you're interested, like I said, if you like sci-fi movies like me, like I said, Chronicles of Riddick, even though that's more kind of action heavy, but Chronicles of Riddick, Blade Runner, um, like I said, The Matrix, of course, maybe like Total Recall, then you'll probably, yeah. I mean, you can get into Dark City. It has a charm to it. It's I could watch it every once in a while. Is it as rewatchable as like me trying to watch the first Matrix movie? Probably not, but I could definitely, if I'm just in the mood for just sci-fi movies in general, it's definitely on that list of movies to look at. Um, but yeah, yeah, that's it for this one. Like I said, it's on Tubi. I recommend it if you're interested. As always, like, comment, share, and stay tuned for more. Oh, I forgot. Depending how you choose to watch this, there's usually a trailer. So again, if you aren't entirely sure if something you want to jump into, watch the trailer. That's what I do with movies I'm not familiar with. Like, let me watch the trailer and see if it's something I'd be interested in. Um, but yeah, peace, you guys.